All right, and we will go ahead and get started. Good morning. We wanted to welcome you to this morning's webinar, Supporting Family Time, Maintaining the Parent-Child Relationship During Times of Separation. We wanted to get started with some introductions. We'd love to have people introduce themselves in the chat if you want to share your name, your role, where you're joining from. We want to just kind of get the chat going this morning. My name is Adrienne Gerard, and I'm the director of the Training and Technical Assistance team for First Steps Together. I wanted to do some really quick housekeeping, talk a little bit about First Steps Together and our resources, and then hand it over to our amazing presenters this morning. I do want to note that this meeting is being recorded and it will be available publicly. We'll send out the link to the recordings and the resources after. And for those of you who are not familiar with First Steps Together, it is a home visiting program dedicated to serving and empowering families on their parenting and recovery journeys. We have 7 sites across the state and serve parents and expectant parents who have been affected by substance use. We offer voluntary and free services in the home, community, virtually, delivered by peer support specialist who is a parent in recovery or a mental health counselor with specialized training. We also offer groups and care coordination. And let's see, we can share our map, which shows our sites, as well as the contact person at each site. Thank you, Maytal. And at the bottom, it has our link to our website on mass.gov, as well as my contact information. So please feel free to reach out with any questions. And I am so fortunate to be part of the training and technical assistance team. And we work to build connections throughout the state to anyone doing similar work. Can we actually just go back to the training and TA slides? So we have some recorded webinars that we can give people access to, thank you, as well as live webinars on the 4th Tuesday of the month. We're so glad that you joined us this morning, and please feel free to share any of our webinars with any peers or colleagues. We have a library of topic-based newsletters. And we've created a guide to doing this work with input from staff all across the project. And it'll be printed in the next couple of weeks. And if you're interested in any of these resources or learning more about the project, please reach out. My email's on the slide, and I can also put it in the chat. So I'm really excited about the 2 presenters for today's webinar. Erica, there we go. Their beautiful faces. Erica Napolitan is a family recovery training and TA specialist on the TA team for First Steps Together. And she's housed at Jewish Family and Children's Services of Greater Boston. And she began her work 13 years ago as a family support specialist and MOUD advocate with the Fresh Start program after successfully completing the program herself as a client. Through her work with Fresh Start and then later with Project Nest, she began speaking publicly, training providers and medical professionals from across the country on substance-exposed newborns, the benefits of peer support, coaching, using parenting as a catalyst for recovery, and the importance of trauma-informed practices for individuals and families with substance use disorder. And today she provides training and technical assistance to the 7 sites who are implementing the First Steps Together program, as well as collaborating with other agencies and workforce programs across the state of Massachusetts to promote the development of the use of the peer workforce to support parents affected by substance use. We're also really happy to have Sophia Terry this morning. She's a clinical social worker who currently works as a clinical program specialist on the TA team. She earned her master's of social work from Simmons University and has focused her work on supporting families impacted by substance use ever since. Prior to her current role, she worked in a variety of settings, including residential and transitional programs, offering counseling and case management support for both children and adults impacted by social, emotional, and behavioral challenges. And most recently, she worked as a parent-child clinician for Project Nest at JFCS. She provided parent-child therapy, care coordination for parents working towards recovery. She's trained in a number of approaches, including newborn behavioral observation, facilitating attuned interactions, the FAN model, mothering from the inside out, and she holds a postgraduate certificate in family and child forensics from William James College. So I will want to thank you both for being here, and I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Adrienne. So we are going to be talking about family time today, and I just want to name that, it can be challenging and difficult to talk about families that are being separated. It may bring up big feelings in ourselves or feelings that we have for other people that we know. So we just want to encourage you to make sure you take care of yourself during this webinar. If you need to walk away, take a break, take some deep breaths, do whatever you need to do. But we just want to acknowledge that you are our priority, and we want to make sure that you take care of yourself during this time. So today we were talking about family time, and our program uses the term family time to refer to what is known as supervised visitation or supervised parenting time. We intentionally shift the focus of this from the supervision of the parent to an opportunity for connection between the parent and the child. Despite separation, we know that parents and children are still family, and their visits together are an opportunity to spend time together as a family, even though it might only be once a week or whatever the visitation arrangement is. We think it's important to really name that this is their family time together, and the language that we use is important. So we move forward with using family time when we're describing these types of visits.
So as Erica mentioned, may be more or less familiar with this topic, but for Massachusetts, typical minimal contact for family time is 1 hour per week. And parents generally have an action and assessment plan where they're working towards goals. And as they're meeting those goals, they can increase their time. So it might start with, an hour per week supervised, and then working up to community visits and overnights with the ultimate goal of reinstating legal and physical custody. Some parents also have contact with their children by phone or by video between visits. Sometimes parents can attend school functions or medical appointments, and it's kind of our job to support the relationship and advocate for that maintained connection and involvement. And research has shown that more frequent visitation, when indicated, can have positive impacts in both parent and child. And we know this. There's many benefits. So our role is to advocate for families around visitation. And sometimes that means more frequent visits. Sometimes that means more flexibility with the timing or the setting. Sometimes that means helping identify and overcome barriers to successful visits, for example, with communication or transportation, helping parents feel like set up and capable to be there for their child and meet their child where they're at. So all of that kind of falls within our role as support providers for families. And benefits of connection, there's lots of research on this, but regular visits and positive parent-child interaction, of course, maintains the parent-child attachment and can calm children's separation fears. It can reduce the need for children's referral to psychiatric services and decrease a variety of negative outcomes, such as delinquent or antisocial acts, vandalism, stealing, and running away. And I, of course, wanted to note that we are seeking support. Lots of children have lots of different needs, regardless of their family structure. But we do know that having a secure base and having that consistent attachment, even if you are separated from your child, helps as a protective factor as they grow. So part of our role on our program is to support parents with kind of best practices as they navigate this experience. Just to say, as Erica mentioned, it can be very emotional for sure for parents for many of them, not have their children with them for the first time. And each interaction with child welfare services or each interaction with their children can bring up big feelings. And we just want to be mindful of that. Our support is not only emotional, but it can also be just doing the small tasks that are required to navigate this and providing support with that. So we encourage parents to confirm their schedule for family time in advance, plan ahead for their visits. So kind of what to bring, anticipating how they might feel, talking that through. We encourage parents to kind of keep a calendar or keep notes of how things went, when visits are taking place. We encourage them to maintain connections between visits by phone and video, or have other involvement such as appointments or school events, and staying up to date on their children's needs also, for example, medical or educational. And this can vary between families and kind of their individual situation and the custody arrangement. But typically, we can be that voice of advocacy for families when parents do want to be more involved. And having a positive relationship with child welfare services can really lend itself to having this collaborative interaction where families can ideally be more involved. And then best practices for providers. So our program obviously has multiple different types of providers. We have, our FRSS, who are our program is based after this peer model where they're providing the primary support, and then there's clinicians and there's supervisors as well. But we really encourage all staff to be involved from kind of the get-go. We typically make proactive connections with child welfare services with the parents' permission. So that's kind of like as soon as you're meeting a family and you're hearing about the involvement, we're asking if they would like to sign a release, and we're making those connections right away before there's an issue, before there's a crisis, kind of just like, this is who I am, this is my role in supporting the family, please provide me regular updates. How can we work together to support this family? And having that kind of open dialogue and including the parent too. I think that's an important piece, as much as they would like to be included. We want this to be like a collaborative effort. We typically maintain a copy of the family assessment and action plan from child welfare services and align goals and services where possible. That doesn't mean necessarily that our program goals are going to perfectly align, but we want to reduce like duplicative services so parents don't feel overwhelmed. We want everything on, their action plan to feel useful to them, and their goals for our program to be really parent-led and parent-driven. And that's kind of our whole frame, is that the parent is like leading this process and we are the support for them. We typically attend and initiate team meetings, and that goes beyond child welfare, DCF, like regularly scheduled meetings at their regular intervals. We will also want to have collaborative meetings in addition to that, to just touch base and see how things are going. We encourage and advocate for parent contact and involvement. We teach and support visit planning, and we do have some tools to share with you all, and we'll get to those later on. As I said, request regular updates, and we offer support around family time and changes to the parenting or custody arrangement, and we will get kind of more into the weeds of like how we do that. So that was a lot of information. We want to take a pause, and we're going to have some breakout discussion. I know we have lots of folks here from lots of different places and lots of different roles. So we want people to just get talking about what their role is typically with family time, what they've found useful for the families that you all work with, and share amongst yourselves. And then we will come back together to share as a group.
How long are the breakouts?
So yeah, we're gonna open the rooms right now, and they're for 10 minutes. And there'll be about 5 to 6 people in each room, and then we can come back, and we would love to have folks share out what they discussed.
Let's give it a second for everybody to come back. So nice to see all your faces. Are we all back now? Yeah.
Yep.
All right. That was great. Thank you guys for doing that. How did that feel? Was it nice to get to talk with others?
Yes, it was.
Great. And if you have, is there anything that you'd like to share? You can feel free to unmute or put it in the chat, and we'll get our slides back up and going in just a minute. Just to let you know, we will have another set of breakouts a little later, so you will have a chance to reconnect with the people that you were just with.
Something I feel like we all had in common in our breakout room was, our participants need a lot of support with DCF and their family action plans. And, we all shared similar stories how, even if our participants reach the end of their action plan and have done everything, it's like they always want more. And then, maybe DCF isn't giving them clear answers on where to go for drug screenings or where to go for these resources. So then it's like puts us as like the buffer, and we're just trying to figure out like where everybody can go, what's approved, what's not approved, trying to keep the parents in the loop. Somebody said from early intervention, because, at the end of the day, no matter what that parent did, using drugs or, whatever the reason may be that they got removed, there's still a bond with that parent and that child. So when you just remove them, especially if they're in early interventions for, speech delays or, they're autistic or anything, I don't want to say it's like a deeper connection with the parent, but there's more worry because now it's like they're nonverbal. So they can't express how, they miss their parent, and they might, lose weight or might, miss out on things. And it's really sad, and it's really hard. So I think just trying to keep the parent involved as much as they can be.
Absolutely, Amanda. And that's why, Sophia had kind of stressed the importance of collaboration. We want to have good relationships with the department so that we can be in communication with them. It's also why it's important to know the resources in your area to be able to provide them for parents, but also to, really make sure that you're available to hold space for parents when they need it. Sometimes speaking your truths about how you're feeling is one of the most powerful things that we can do. And so like creating that space, in sometimes hard situations that we might not always have the answers to, we can still be a listening ear. And I think that that's the most important thing that we can do for people as we help support them on their journeys. So thank you for sharing that. And I think Maytal, if you can put the slides back up. Thank you. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit more about actually supporting family time before, during, and after the visits. So, and as Sophia mentioned, we do have some tools to support this that we're going to look at later, but I'm going to dig in a little bit here on this part. So, as we had mentioned, before the visit, we can really help parents prepare by thinking ahead about what they need to bring, like toys and snacks, diapers, wipes, age-appropriate activities. I think one thing is myself as a person with lived experience and as working with lots of people that have had separation from their children, we often don't realize that we need to be showing up to visits with those things like a formula for the baby or a blanket for tummy time, snacks and games. When you do have a visit in the DCF office, there is usually some toys for children to play with, but it's always good to encourage parents to bring something from home, whether it be a special book that you like to read or a game that you like to play as a family or a special toy. These visits, this family time can be overwhelming for parents to even think about, and, having to like go through the whole process. It's really important that we're there to support them beforehand to think about like what it is that they may need to bring for their child for that visit. Also, it's great to be able to support parents to help remember to bring any paperwork they may need for their social worker, whether that be, proof of completion for their action plan, information about their child, other documents. When I'm working with parents, I often like to encourage them to, when possible, like write letters to their children or notes to the foster care parent, the foster parent that may potentially be able to be shared when appropriate. Just about how you're feeling or special things about your child and, these important things that help you stay connected, and really giving parents the opportunity to share their feelings, their questions, their concerns, their goals for their time together with their child. I think that Most visits are an hour long, and as a parent, we have like really big expectations of what can happen in that hour, and there's lots of feelings and lots of thoughts that come around with that. There's nervousness and being anxious, and how will my child behave? How will I respond to their behavior? Is there going to be crying? How am I going to manage my own feelings? It's really good to set up those conversations with your parent and participant beforehand, so that they've had an opportunity to really think through those things, and what their goals are and intentions are for spending their time with their child. So during the visit, to that point of like setting up those conversations before, it is helpful to have participants or your clients or parents, whoever you're working with, to have practiced and prepared responses to difficult questions their children might ask. In our last webinar, we shared how to use social stories to have difficult conversations with children. And we showed how to make a social story so that we can explain, what is the visit, that mommy or daddy are here right now, and then we're going to have to leave, and you're going to go back to where you were staying, and we're all going to be safe, and kind of really reassuring that. But giving an opportunity to have these conversations beforehand helps parents be prepared to deal with the difficult questions that often do arise depending on the age of your child. They may be wondering what happened, where did you go, why am I not with you? And those questions can be really uncomfortable to answer. And it is more benefit to the parent and the child for them to help you, for you to help talk them through this beforehand, so that they have prepared answers, so that they can answer these questions appropriately, holding the child in mind and making sure that, they're using age appropriate responses for that time together is really important. Another thing we like to think about for during the visit is helping the parent have a breathing exercise or a grounding phrase to manage stress during the visit. Me personally, in my early recovery, I used to always tell myself that my mentality creates my reality. And when I was getting really stressed out, I would share that, I'd go through that in my head, because it helped ground me and understand that, in this moment, I have control over how I'm reacting to things. I have control over my feelings and my thoughts, and whatever I'm thinking is what's going to be happening around me. And I have control over that. And it would help me be able to manage my stress and calm down, take some deep breaths, and really think about what I was doing moving forward. One thing that they can do when it's appropriate, we can ask staff to attend family time as a quiet supporter to help with the parent-child activity. This is also a benefit of having a good working relationship with your DCF social worker, is that when it's appropriate, maybe we can attend the visit as well, and we can help mom or dad do an activity with their child, or help them think about having a fun activity with their snacks. I mean, there's so many things that we can do. It's a very limited amount of time, but we can, count goldfish crackers, or talk about colors, or just, take that time to explore the environment. And sometimes the parent can be really anxious. So having you, who is their trusted support, alongside with them, even if you're just a quiet observer, can help give them the strength and, resilience that they need to get through that really challenging moment. We can meet together with the caseworker after and between visits to advocate for the family's needs and wishes. This is the benefit of collaboration. We can work together. No matter what agency you work for, or what your values are, what your mission is, our overall goal is supporting the needs of parents and children, and making sure that the family gets the support that they need. So being able to work together with social workers and anybody else that is involved is really helpful for our family and for their kiddos. After the visit, so dedicating time to support families that you're working with after the visit is a really good opportunity to explore and process together. I can say from my own personal experience as someone that has had a lived experience with the Department of Children and Families, after the visit was some of the hardest times I had ever walked through. The emotions that you experience, the up and the down, you're grateful that you got to see your children, but you're, maybe really upset with yourself for the way things have gone. There's feelings of guilt and shame, and just the ups and downs that go with it are so hard, and they're really challenging to process. And oftentimes our parents walk away and they process these things alone. The benefit of working with families is that we can create that space for them to talk about how hard it is, or how how absolutely incredible it was to see my child, but now I'm absolutely feeling broken because I can't be with them any longer. It is such a hard space to sit in. And I think that one of the gifts that we can give the people that we work with is to create that space for them to process. And that might be screaming and yelling and venting about how frustrated they are about the situation. That might be tears. That might be silence. It might be just holding space and silence with their participants so that they can process however they need to. And we can also offer to follow up with child welfare services or other providers serving the child and parents if there are outstanding issues or questions that come up during family time. So as I had mentioned, that after the visit is really a vulnerable time. So, part of our job as providers is in part to support the family, but it's also to help support other providers through this experience. So, to have that common understanding of the trauma that parents and children can experience with out-of-home placements. We don't always know the reasons why there's separation, but it is a traumatic event for both parent and child, and it's something that we need to create space for. Really recognizing that grief and loss can manifest in many ways. This may look like, a last minute cancellation from a participant that always keeps their appointments, or hostility, not having your participant lash out at you, which is something they don't normally do. You're a safe space for them to use as a sounding board, and they really don't know what to do with their grief and their feelings at that time. So that may be directed at you. And, being able to give them grace in those moments and understanding that, they're just coming off of a family time visit, that this may be really hard for them. And understanding that children's increased distress before and or after family visits, that, behavior may come up, things may be challenging. If you're a provider that works with the children, thinking about how to support the foster parent or the guardian at that point in time and managing the child's behavior and creating a space for them, the child themselves, to talk about how they're feeling is really important. And, really considering the underlying reasons for certain behaviors and engaging in trauma-informed problem solving with and for the family. I think the most important thing that we're thinking about here is that, parents that are experiencing separation from their child have action and assessment plans. They have multiple services. They're separated from their children. There is an incredible demand for their time and their energy and everything that goes along with that. If you're a service provider and you get blown off, there may be a reason why. Like, being open and asking questions about, when is your next family time visit? How can I support you through that? Is there anything that I can do to help you prepare? And understanding that after the visit, you might not see that person. They might not be wanting to talk to you, or they might not be their normal regulated self. They might be really, kind of up and down and experiencing a lot of emotions, and just being able to create a safe space for them where you can hold them and allow them to process is really important.
Erica, can I jump in for 1 second?
Absolutely.
I got a question in the chat, but I think it was directly to me, but someone was asking or just mentioning too, how these big feelings, in addition to like supporting and honoring them, can also factor into decisions about parenting time increasing. And we just really want to be mindful of our role as advocates, of helping make sense of these feelings, and that they're normal as well. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we need to like hit the brakes on increasing family time or revert back to like a lesser visitation schedule. It's very normal for kids to have big feelings about this and different responses before and after. And it doesn't mean that the parent is doing anything wrong. Also, this is just kind of the process of separation and then like resuming and increasing contact. It's just an emotional experience for everyone involved. And feel free to expand on that. I just wanted to address.
No, absolutely. Thank you, Sophia. I think it's really important that that was asked and that you answered that, because you're right, that does often happen, that, maybe the child has an explosive episode after a visit, and oftentimes that'll decrease in visits. I can honestly say in my own personal situation, that was the case, where my children would have really big reactions after having a visit and have big feelings, and they would not hold back in letting those feelings out. And often the result was less parenting time or family time for me. And that was hard for everyone. And I can say, as someone that's on the other side of it, that has very much involvement with those now adult children, that was a really hard thing for all of us to walk through. And the one thing that has like really come out is that depending on the situation, when it's safe, the more contact, the better. A lot of my children's issues around the visit ending wasn't so much that they were being separated from me, but it was more their worry about my safety and where I was and if I was okay, because they knew that I was walking through things at that time. So I think that brings up another point where it's important to, in an age appropriate way, be, you know, as honest with children as we possibly can, and reassuring that, you know, they're in a safe place, and when possible, that their parents are safe as well. That being said, about safety, we really need to think about staying safe. After family time visits, it is an increased time for reoccurrence of use or overdose. And even for families that you may not think are at risk, it's really important to have this conversation. So when we are working with parents, we should really be asking the participant if they have access to Narcan. And if they don't, we can provide that for them in many cases, or share resources where they can get some, making sure they know how to use it. Also encouraging using Never Use Alone New England, and the numbers here, and we can share this out with you as well. But Never Use Alone New England is a hotline that you can call, and the operator will stay on the phone with you as when you use. And if you do not respond within a couple of minutes, they will send emergency assistance to your location. Because it's, you know, very real that overdoses happen, especially for people that have not used in a while. You're at a higher risk of overdose. So this hotline is a way for people that are potentially using to not be alone when they do so. And to also make sure that participants have information for their local crisis center or hotline when needed. If they're not comfortable with coming to you with their feelings, to make sure that they have resources and access to other services. You know, maybe it's after hours and they're really like having a breakdown. It's now like 11 o'clock at night and they need somebody to talk to. We want to make sure that everyone has access to the resources that they need to get the support that they need in the moment. And what I think is one of the most important things is holding space for ourselves. Supporting families through this process is really, really hard. It can bring up big feelings around our own personal experiences if we have them. Watching people be in distress and have big feelings is really challenging. It helps us acknowledge that this work can be hard, and we need to give ourselves time and space to process and heal. To share with your supervisor, talk to a loved one, coworkers, or your therapist about how you're feeling, and tend to your own mental health and recovery. And this helps prevent burnout and compassion fatigue. We're going to share a newsletter that we have about this topic, but I had a moment myself back a few years ago where I was at a DCF office to do some work with some partners there, and I happened to be in the waiting room and there was a lot of visits happening. And I had this moment where I was flooded with all of those feelings of being in those rooms and what it really felt like. And in that moment, in the middle of nowhere, you know, I started to cry. And fortunately, I was with my coworker and I was able to process that with her and tell her how I was feeling. But we never know when those feelings are going to creep up on us. And it's really important that we create the space for ourselves to take care of ourselves, to process our feelings, to make sure that we're doing that in a healthy way, to reach out to our own supports. That's what they're there for. Hopefully you have a great supervisor that is able to provide support for you in time for need. And when you don't, it's, you know, turn to your recovery supports, turn to your therapist. And yeah, Colleen, I just saw that question. It does often feel like PTSD. You know, in that moment for me, that experience for me was traumatic. So to be able to, in some ways, I felt like I was reliving my own moment. And I think that can happen for a lot of us. And we just need to be aware of that and have a safe space to access that and take time for ourselves. I took the next day off from work. I canceled my meetings for the rest of the day. I, you know, leaned into my own self-care practices, and I talked to the people that I turned to support about, you know, what I was experiencing in that moment. And it helped me work through it. And that's why we're talking about it now, is because this is one of the most important things. You know, I always say it's kind of cliche, but, you know, we have to put the oxygen on ourselves first, right? Or we can't be there for anybody else. We are doing the hard work of supporting families at some of the darkest, most hard times of their life. We can't do that if we're not taking care of ourselves. We can't be the best versions of ourselves. We can't provide the best care for people. We can't provide the best support if we're not first supported ourselves. And that sometimes has to be the priority. You know, we show up to work every day, and for many of us that have lived experience or not, you know, we're recovering out loud, we're wearing our hearts on our sleeves, we're bringing our own experiences to work every day. And that is not an easy thing to do. And it's courageous, and it's difficult, and it's challenging. But it really does warrant taking care of ourselves. So if there's anything that I could stress through this entire webinar, it is this piece, is that taking care of ourselves first so that we can be the best versions of ourselves possible to support families through the hard things, because that is really where it's at. And it's modeling. You know, when we take a pause during a visit, when you hear something challenging, just so you can take your own deep breath and collect your own thoughts, because it's brought up a feeling. You're modeling for that parent, for that participant, what it is to take a pause and take care of yourself, you know, excusing yourself when you need to, you know, it's part of the process. It's teaching people that taking care of yourself is a priority, and that it's the most important thing that we can do.
And I know we've touched upon collaborating with child welfare services, but we really want to just reiterate the importance of this. There's so many benefits to having a positive working relationship with families and their caseworkers and our other support providers, our staff. It's improved care for the family. We're better able to identify the needs or like gaps in services. We're better able to provide support that's needed. We can advocate, and overall we can help have better outcomes. I also think it provides different opportunities when you have like a positive working relationship. I've ran groups, and I've had parents get permission from their DCF social workers to bring children to groups as they were kind of like increasing their time together. And we had parent-child activities, and they got to be in like a community setting with other moms going through the same experience and like share openly. And it kind of, I think, built like a different sense of community and reduced that sense of like isolation and otherness for them to be in the community, like doing art projects, having like positive connection time with their child, as they like worked beyond, you know, just the first few like small family times, and then like increasing time to like weekends or overnights or having their child out in the community. But it's kind of like practice in a supportive environment and time for parents to just bond with their children. And we do want to stress that like we have collectively as a team worked with so many really amazing DCF workers. We say DCF in Massachusetts, but for those elsewhere, child welfare services. And I do think that it can be really impactful in terms of like the trajectory of the family to have a positive working relationship, and to, you know, help educate and collaborate with everyone on the team, and help parents to see that we're all here to support them and their child, and like build those skills. So we've said it once and we'll say it many more times. But this is like, I think this is like an area of growth for a lot of us who work in this field of really, the care coordination is like such an important piece. And team meetings is an important way to practice that. There's often like many providers for any family, and other providers might not be aware of changes in custody or when family time is taking place, or that, you know, parents might have big feelings, reactions, stress around parent family time. So we want to make sure that other providers are aware, as Erica was mentioning, like there might be a missed appointment, there might be, you know, an increased risk of relapse or other, you know, unhealthy habits. And it behooves everyone for us all to like be in communication and to be aware of like what the parent's going through, of course, always with the parent's knowledge and permission. We encourage parents to like share this information with their own treatment providers if they want to, but we also offer that we can communicate this information on their behalf, or in collaboration with them, we recognize that like this can be difficult to talk about and to make sense of. And we can offer language and support for that if parents are just feeling like overwhelmed. And then we also like ask other providers to like be in the know and to step up. You know, they can provide additional support. If I'm providing therapy to a family and I'm aware of this experience, I'm going to be checking in like, how was it? How was it seeing your child? Like, how did you feel before? How did it go? How are you feeling now? Is there anything you want to like process or make sense of in our session together? I'm going to be more aware that there could be a risk of relapse or overdose, as Erica mentioned. People process in different ways. You know, some people want help, they want to talk it out. Some people go into themselves and they isolate and they no show for appointments or groups. There's all sorts of ways that people process, and we just want to be kind of unconditionally supportive of parents going through this process and just give them space to feel however they feel and to process it however best works for them. And then we also encourage providers to take a more sensitive and strength-based approach. Reach out if someone misses one or more appointments. Don't take like a punitive stance, but kind of like, how can we remove barriers? I'm here for you. You know, what's not working and what can we help work better? So these are all ways that, you know, team collaboration with DCF and other providers can be beneficial to the family. And we would really encourage everyone on this call to start practicing these things. And I think also having an open dialogue, and we'll get to this in the next breakout, but an open dialogue also with DCF, like what works best for them? How do they best want to communicate? You know, this is a collaborative approach and we want to be like including everyone with a seat at the table. We can go to the breakout. I see there's a question. If we want to go ahead.
Colleen, go ahead.
Is that me?
Yep.
Yeah, Colleen.
I wanted to point out that Sharita from DCF made a comment in the chat about if you're having trouble reaching out to your DCF connection to really loop in the supervisor manager. And I just wanted to reiterate that, like, I think sometimes folks are a little hesitant to do that, like thinking they're getting someone in trouble, but they're not. These people spend so much time on the road that the managers really can help connect you with them. So I just wanted to reiterate what Sharita said, that it's not a punitive thing to reach out to a DCF supervisor or manager. It's part of their system and they want us to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Sharita. And thank you also, Leslie Ann, for pointing out that our consent should include the supervisor as well. That's really important. But I think, you know, one of the things that we often think is that DCF doesn't want to collaborate with us when that's actually not the case. There's, you know, they are willing to collaborate and they do have the area substance use coordinators and also plan of safe care coordinators that are happy and willing and able to help support you through these things. So I appreciate that you all have like brought that up and that we're talking about it, because it is a really important part of collaboration. And again, like Colleen and Sharita had said, if you're struggling to get in touch with the worker, go to the supervisor, go to the manager if you have to. You know, we know that the system is really inundated with so much right now. People are overworked. They've got a lot on their plate. They might not necessarily be able to get to you, but they do work as a team. So somebody can answer your questions or get to you, hopefully in a timely manner. So that is an option.
And I just want to add that after this training, we will be sharing out some resources. But I think what I've heard from folks too, like as we work on the TA team, we support lots of staff that do this work. Sometimes people are not familiar with kind of the staffing structure of DCF or who to go to for certain things. And we've provided previous trainings on this, but we're continuing to provide training on this and resources about like who to go with what. And I really, again, appreciate these comments, and people should keep an eye on the chat because there's lots of good resources from people's own professional experience. And to follow up on kind of what we're already getting into, our next breakout is going to be a chance for people to discuss what collaborative practices they've found useful to families, and what's promoted better, like understanding and communication between parents and staff and child welfare services. I think it's great that we have so many folks from so many different like disciplines and roles here, and we hope that this conversation will be useful for folks. We're going to go out for about 10 minutes again, and then hope to share out once you all have discussed in your groups.
Hello, welcome back. I always feel when it takes a while for people to come back, that some really good conversations must have been happening. So awesome. Before we get going again, does anybody have anything they'd like to share out from their breakout conversations? You can put in the chat. Okay, Betty, I see that you raised your hand. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, we had great chat, great information. It's so funny because most of us forgot what the question was until we started talking. And we're like, oh, yeah, collaboration. And then I think the consensus was collaboration is key, and to keep our clients in the know, and just to let them know we do not work for DCF. We're on your side. We'll always let you know when we're talking with them, and it's always up to you what you want us to share, and I'm very upfront with my mom's, and dad, saying that I'm not going to talk to them ever without you not knowing, and that unfortunately, especially if they have a stumbling block in their recovery, they get extra defensive, and they oftentimes, I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, they often will say, DCF, just their job is to take my kids. They're out to get me. And we have to reiterate, wait a minute. I don't think anybody that works for DCF doesn't care. Obviously,
Exactly.
they care. They're in it not for the money. They're in it because they want to help families with children. And their job is to protect the children. And oftentimes our clients don't see that, or they don't want to. But how important it is to let them know that, we all have a job to do. And my job is to let you know I'm 100% there with you, to walk with you. And we want DCF out of your life just as fast as you do, So I think collaboration is key. And
Yeah.
I've met many DCF workers that are so nice that they really want the best, and some are just tough as nails, but that's just the
Yeah.
nature of it, right?
It's the name of the game. And Betty, I appreciate a couple things that you named there, and just that, that nothing about us without us, right? Collaboration is key, but the family should be at the center of it. Always letting people know, when you're communicating and how you're communicating, and having those permissions, and playing that, explaining that role, having to be I'm here for you, but also I know that DCF is not here out to get you. That, they have a job to do. And, as much as you want DCF out of your life, they want to be out of your life as well. They want your family to be back together. They want to be able to, walk away. And sometimes that's a hard place to stand when you're with participants, because, we are there for them and we are providing support to them. But it's an important part of our jobs, is that we can bring that lens to the table while still supporting our participants fully. It's really important. Thank you, Betty, for all of that. It was great. Annie.
Hi. I want to say thank you to the group that I'm in for your support, and just knowing that one of them said, do not avoid DCF. Really try to validate them so that they can validate us, and because it's what's best for our participant and our client. And someone brought up too that sometimes there's also, outlying prejudices and biases depending on where someone lives and their community. Notwithstanding, racial biases and all that, but, sometimes it's your zip code. And so you may, get some pushback there, but to understand that, as one said, our conversations are always going to be strength-based with our DCS workers because she said, anything you say can be used against you and your client. So, make sure you don't avoid them, and try to really, keep in touch and keep that collaboration going, even if you don't feel like, if you don't feel good about it, but that's what we have to do. So.
Absolutely, Annie. I think like you brought up some good points. Like we don't want to avoid them. We want to work together. That collaboration is really key. The best way that we can support families is to collaborate, not just with DCF, but all of their providers when possible. Bring everybody to the table. They say it like takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to support a family. And every one of us on this call today, no matter what our role, have signed up to support a family in some way, shape, or form. And, we can't do that alone. Nobody can do this in silos. Parents can't do it alone. We can't do it alone. There's lots of different lenses and perspectives at the table. And, through collaboration, we can make sure that we're all on the same page and that everybody's getting, that family is getting the benefit of everyone's lens. Like, it might be different. It might look different. The values of the agency and what they do might be different, but the goal is the same. Like I said earlier, it's to support families and to help them grow and to help them get back together when they're not. And if we're not open to collaboration, if we're hiding from some providers, then we're not doing justice to the family. We really need to be there to advocate, to be the translator in a lot of ways. I think one of the benefits of our roles is that, we can translate what's happening. Like, our participants might hear one thing come out of DCF, but what we heard was completely different. And we have the ability to kind of translate what was just said and to help parents walk through that so that, because there's a lot of emotion behind what they're hearing. I might have heard something completely positive, but that my participant just took that completely the wrong way. And now we've created an opportunity for us to have a conversation. Having multiple people at the table to support a family is the way that we can make sure that they're getting the best access to services possible, that they're not duplicating services, that the services they're receiving are of value to them and their children, and that it's going to help them grow and heal and move forward. And the biggest thing we can do is make sure that we're collaborating with everybody. So of course, signed releases, but like collaboration is key. Creating those relationships with families, with providers, even when we're not working with people. I know in my past, I've been able to reach out to DCF workers that I've created relationships with and ask questions, without detail, but like, hey, what's your thoughts on this? Or where can I find this resource? There's always people that we can work with within the systems that can help us support families, but that's not going to happen if we're avoiding them and we're hiding them. So thank you, Annie, for bringing that up. Julia,
Okay.
I see your hand, but I also saw that Sharita had raised her hand. Go ahead, Sophia, if you want to jump in.
Oh, it's okay. We can hear from Sharita first, if she still wants to share.
No, I'm always super mindful of time because if you don't know me and I haven't had the pleasure to love on you, I'm a talker. I just wanted to say that I saw before we went into breakouts the piece that was raised about racism and systems and structures, and I always offer in every space that DCF is a system, as all systems, embedded with a lot of things that we are trying to undo. But I always say that we should always take the challenge to go back to our respective places and spaces to challenge the narrative. Because we all have work to do, and our families are troubled by multiple systems, and I think we are in a resource-rich state that still has a lot of work to do. And some of the ways that things are designed are to pit systems against each other, which works against our families. So I'm grateful for this place and space, and for you all for the work that you do so that we can do things differently. And challenge ourselves in every opportunity. So I always say, we know what's wrong. How do we fix it? And so I'm hoping that today, which is why I put my email in the chat, that we try to figure out how to be proactive, and get ahead of it in spite of where we may be respectively, to do things different. So I just wanted to say that super quickly. And I think you guys are all awesome Homo sapiens.
Thank you, Sharita. I really appreciate that. And that you're bringing that up, and sharing your email so that we can continue the conversations with you. Julie, super quick, because we've got a couple more important things to get to. So
Okay, super quick. I just think that like clarity, creating clarity, and so with clients to follow up with an email when there is communication, right? Very strength-based, right? Thank you so much for your time, blah, blah, blah. So just to be clear, I agreed to this, you agreed to that. And so it's very clear, something to come back to, and it creates accountability on both sides.
Absolutely, Julie. And to that point too, like bringing up, we've talked about this in other webinars, but like creating that that paper trail, following up when you have conversations with emails. So to Julie's point, like so that you can confirm this is what you said, that's what I said, this is how we're going to move forward. Is also a really helpful tool. So I'm going to bring up the slides real quick. I want to show you guys, share some tools with you guys. And we did want to create some space for some questions or comments afterwards. But, you know, so we've talked about supporting parents. Go ahead. Yeah, there you go. Before, during, and after the visit. And we talked about, you know, planning and stuff. And I wanted to share with you some tools that we have. So we have created, First Steps Together has created the First Steps My Family Portfolio. I can't really see it here. But we can share this with you if you're interested. But there's a section in it called Steps Towards Each Other. So this section is specifically designed for parents that are separated from their children. And we have a few tools to help support maintaining connection and planning for visit time. So we're going to go through those right now. If we could go to the next slide. And someone in my team is going to put the actual link to these in the chat, because I apologize, these are really small, so you can't see them very well on the screen. But you can open them and be able to view them there. So the first one that we're sharing are ideas and plans for family time. So we in here have a couple of ideas of what parents can bring to their family time. There's also a provider guide that goes along with this book that has some more ideas and resources for you to help participants with this. Just some reminders of what they can do, what they can bring. And then it has some space for them to actually write down, like, when is their visit scheduled, the time and the location, who will be present for the visit, the activity that they have planned, the items that they're going to need, what they're going to bring for snack, what they're going to bring for their child, what they're going to bring for child welfare services. Before the visit, I will center myself by. After the visit, I will calm myself by, and this is what I want to remember for my next visits and notes. So all of that information that we threw at you today is contained in here, so that, you know, we can help participants when we're with them, but then they also have the tools and skills that they need to do this when we're not working with them, so that they can carry these over, not just for, you know, when they're separated, but to think about like being proactive and planning, you know, whenever they're parenting. So we can go on to the next one. So we also have the family time notes. And so this is a way to really kind of help people keep track. I know that's something that comes up a lot are canceled visits, whether it be canceled by the parent themselves or something comes up and it gets canceled by the department. This is a tool that we've created so that you can keep track of these things. If canceled or rescheduled, the date that I canceled it or I was notified of the change, the date the visit was supposed to occur, the reason for the schedule change, notes of progress or concern for the child, question or concern for the caseworker, and planned follow-up with provider or other support person. You know, so there's a couple things that we think of when we're looking at this tool. This is a great way to be able to have a space to write down the things you want to remember. It's also a great way to take some accountability for a parent. You know, how many times have I canceled my visits? Like, and maybe that creates an opportunity for us to have a conversation with parents. Like, what are your feelings around this? How come that you've canceled your family time? I know how much you want to see your children. Why aren't we actually having this visit? Or vice versa, if these visits continue to get canceled, this is an opportunity for us to help our families advocate for why isn't family time happening, kind of getting to the bottom of what's going on and just really being able to keep track of things, because there's a lot happening. Sophia, did you want to add here?
Yeah, I was just going to say also for parents to keep track of like other things, like my child seemed like tired this time, or she had a rash, or like I was meaning to ask how she's doing in like preschool or like sleep training or her feeding schedule, or have you checked in with her EI person about her development? Like it's another way for parents to like be more involved, even if they don't have direct involvement with their children's providers. Like it can be a communication tool with DCF or with like a foster or kinship placement. We really just are encouraging parents to like hold their child in mind, and like be actively involved in whatever way they feel comfortable and whatever way they're able. And so these tools are kind of like a way to get parents comfortable who might not otherwise be, and might be thinking about these things.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sophia. We can move to the next one. So this one is one of like, family time is really important, but I think that maintaining connections is one of what I see as one of the most important tools. Being separated from your child, and I know from my own personal experiences, one of the hardest things I've ever had to walk through. Missing them, knowing what to do with the energy and the feelings that I'm having. It's a lot like grief. Like, where does this love go? How do I, what do I do? So we have this maintaining connection tool, which does have some ideas of how we can maintain connection. And I'm going to go back to that in a minute, but I want to walk you through. It has sections like when I miss my child, I will, and maybe it's look at a picture, hug something, an article of clothing that smells like them, go for a walk, reach out to my supports. When I have a thought or feeling about my child I want to share, I can maybe write a letter, make a recording, draw a picture. During time apart, I can take care of myself by. When I have concerns about my child, I will reach out to. When I'm feeling sad or frustrated about being separated from my child, I will. People I can turn to for support. Things I'm doing today to work towards my child welfare service family action assessment plan goals, things I'm doing this week to work towards my assessment goals, and things I am doing this month to work towards my family action and assessment plan goals. But I want to stop back and think a little bit about maintaining connection. I think as providers, this is one of the things that we can do, is really encourage people to think about how they can stay connected. One of the best things that a provider of mine offered to me at the time when I was really missing my children and I wanted to maintain that connection, I wasn't really sure what to do. She suggested that I record myself reading their favorite bedtime story. And I thought that that was a wonderful idea. And at the time, they actually had our favorite book that you could record. And now there's many different ways that we can do that. We can use, our phones and all sorts of different devices to record our voices. But I was able to record myself reading our favorite bedtime story right in the book and share it with my DCF worker, who then shared it with the family. So when my girls were missing me and needed that moment of connection, they could open the book and they could hear their mommy reading them a story. And it was one of the most powerful tools that we had to maintain connection. And I felt empowered because I was able to be a part of their life, even though I was separated from them. And they felt better because they could hear my voice when they needed to. So, this is just one of the ways that we can help maintain connection, but there's many ways. I always encourage something I did myself and I encourage my participants to do is to write letters to their children, whether or not they can be sent. It's something that helps you process those feelings, just like speaking our truth, writing our truth, putting words to it can help us process those feelings and feel better. In my own personal experience, I had written many letters to my daughters that I was not able to give to them, but when they were adults, I was able to pass them on and they were able to process those with me. It helped them know that I was thinking about them in a really challenging time, that I didn't just forget about them. And it helped me feel connected to them. There's lots of different ways we can do this, drawing pictures that we can share, sharing special family food recipes with foster parents when available, favorite meals that my kids have. We also have a tool in this book in the our steps that's getting to all about my child, which includes their likes and their dislikes and their favorite things and the ways they like to play, which is also a really great tool that parents can share when they're separated from their children, so that the alternate care provider has a way to really bring home and the parent into the picture as much as possible and make that child feel safe, while also empowering the parent to feel like they're still involved. And these are really important, crucial things that we can do to help maintain that connection in times of separation. All right, so to summarize, I'm going to do this super quick. I'm not going to read all these things you guys can read, but we can provide support and planning before the visit. Providing support during the visit if requested by the parent, providing support after the visit and processing, and making sure that we take care of yourself. Like, please, 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 the one thing you take away from today is that taking care of yourself is so important, and you value and matter, and we need you to be the best you can be so we can continue to support families. And use the tools to help support families. Like, we've created these tools. We are more than excited to share them with you. We hope that they can be used in many different settings. You don't have to be in our program to use these tools. Our goal is to just really help parents as much as possible. And all right, questions. Actually, I think we do also have a short survey, and that's going to go in the chat right now if you guys could fill that out. But I think we can stop sharing, and we'd love to hear like one thing that you're taking away from today or any questions that you may have. I know we're like really close to that 11 o'clock hour, but we can hang out for those of you that have something you'd like to add.
Yeah, we're happy to stay on for a few minutes too if folks want to process. This is kind of an abrupt ending to a big topic.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me go look to the chat here.
Definitely lots of comments about the tools and the portfolio too, and the portfolio and the accompanying provider guide are in the works, and we're happy to share out in PDF form. We also are going to have printed booklets so people can bring them and use them with families. So feel free to, we have everyone's email that's in attendance today, but we will be following up and letting you all know when that's available.
I just think that the tool thing, it's simple and it's not worded with a lot of complications. So the parents, because I have some parents that really can't read that well, can still understand it, and I try to, when I speak to them, I try to talk not like their kids, but in the simplest forms and reiterate, do you understand what I'm saying? Can you, so that they'll know and understand what's being said and how things are going to be done, and excuse me. And I just wish this tool was around when I had DCF.
Right? Me too.
I'd have made my life a little simpler, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm,
But like I had
mhm.
said earlier in the when we were in group, that I didn't do things the way DCF wanted me to do them because we're talking about my life. But in the end, I ended up getting my children back, you know what I'm saying? And I have some years clean time under my belt, 17 years I just celebrated, and but that's due to how I figured my life needed to go, not the way DCF had wrote it in their workup plan. I did use some of it, you know what I'm saying, but I had to do what was best for Wanda. But thank you.
Thank you, Wanda. And thank you all for attending. Like I said, we will be here. We know it's 11 o'clock. If you have to go, that's fine. We'll be following this up with a recording, a whole bunch of resources for you to use. We can share it far and wide if you'd like. We'd love to get this message out to as many people as possible. So thank you all. Have a great Tuesday.
I just wanted to say thank you before we all go. I want to say thank you for making me a part of this Zoom. That's all.
Yeah, thank you.
You're
was
welcome.
fun.
I'm glad you're here.
Thank you for
Thanks a
being
lot.
here.